Welcome on in, everybody. It sounds like I got my stream playing somewhere in the background too. So let me go ahead and remove that. But I appreciate everybody hopping on in here. Sorry for the delayed stream today. There were about four other streams going on, or three post game streams going on around the end of the game. So I figured that would be enough to keep you all occupied for the time being. And I would pop on here a little bit after that and give you my thoughts on the game. So now that you got everybody else's out of the way, I'm going to let some people dive in here just a little bit, and we'll start going over some stuff. Coach BA hopping in here. What's up, BA? I'm taking a ton of heat on social media right now for keeping a level head, but holy cow, I hate our fan base, a roller coaster mentality of fire, everyone being told I'm dumb. Yeah, I'll probably dive into a little bit of that today. More so the level-headed approach. I do appreciate the level-headed approach and the people who can rationalize it, but I understand the people who are upset as well. So I'll start taking y'all's opinions as you dive in here. Curious to see what side of the aisle that y'all currently sit on in terms of how this game went. But a lot of mixed feelings, of course. Tale of two halves. First half, just a lot of self-inflicted errors. We've seen Nebraska kind of do the reverse this entire season, where they play good in the first half, kind of struggle in the second half. Illinois was a little bit of a mixed bag of what we saw, but Matt Rule said it. This is the type of win that Nebraska needed. And I mean, it's a road victory in the Big Ten, right? You look at USC struggling with Wisconsin right now, right? In USC in the Coliseum. You look at Michigan barely sneaking by versus Minnesota, right? It's the Big Ten. It's the Big Ten conference, and not every win's going to be pretty. But I think I saw a stat where it said Nebraska last time Nebraska won a Big Ten road game by 3 scores or more was like 2019 or something like that. So, or just a Big Ten game in general. So, yeah, I mean, we can nitpick, and I'll go into a little bit of the criticism today, and some of the stuff carried over from last week. I think I was pretty fair in my criticism last week. When I dived into the film of what I watched versus Illinois. If y'all tuned into my live stream last week, I did a full film breakdown on kind of what I saw versus Illinois that Nebraska really kind of needed to correct to even be able to come in here. I mean, in Purdue, for all intents and purposes, probably didn't have the best shot to beat Nebraska no matter what, just because the lack of talent. But like I said, a Big Ten road game, a team that could come up here and, Nebraska's coming off a loss. And it's a very risky situation for Nebraska to be in, just because of, we know how Nebraska has Nebraska games up in the past, right? And coming off of a loss, what a perfect situation for Nebraska to fall back into old habits, coming out in the first half and shooting themselves in the foot, right? This team, even a year ago, would have succumbed to that immediately in that first half, right? And this team battled back, though. And I think that's kind of what Matt Rule was talking about when he said this is the type of game that Nebraska needed. Was last year, coming off a loss, tough loss, overtime, at home, for all intents and purposes, probably should have won that game. Then you come out here against a team you should beat and you struggle in the first half. For them to turn it around and really be able to kind of regain that energy and regain that spark back, that's something this Nebraska team hasn't been able to do. We talk about the runs at the end of last year. I mean, let's just think about games last year when Nebraska, everything was going against them. You started to see the scoreboard change. Let's say Nebraska had a lead, right? You saw the scoreboard change as soon as Nebraska lost the lead, relinquished the lead. What do we think? Oh, it's over, right? Purdue comes out, gets points today, and Nebraska comes out and is able to handle business. They're able to put their foot on the gas and finish the game. So, depending on how you look at it, I mean, penalties right now, I think the entire college football world is complaining about this officiating. It is horrendous throughout every single game we watch, every single week. We have to complain about it. And the one thing that I want to point out is this, is it's getting really hard to kind of understand how many of these things are discipline issues when you're looking at the totality of the box score. You're looking at penalties, penalty yardage. When we're looking at all of those things after the fact, it's hard to look at how many of these things are disciplined, because how many of these are actually, really happening. The pre-snap infractions, a lot of those things are happening, right? But you get an OPI like today, right? Well, there's, a penalty and X amount of yards on your, so how many of these penalties are disciplined, and how much of it is just this poor officiating? And that's what really makes it hard to sift through when it comes to, looking at Nebraska and just how their penalties have changed year over year, or even week over week, is just the inconsistencies on the calls, week in and week out. And we saw Matt Rule today. He spoke out about it, which is great for him. Good to see him speak out about it. Just the fact that he's like, I'm going to protect our players. Somebody's got to defend our players, or somebody's got to look out for us. So I'm going to be the one to do it, through his headset on the sideline. I'm all for that, right? Get your play. The players know you have your back. You take a penalty, right? But, a penalty to fire your guys up and let them know the coach has their back, give and take there. I don't think Matt Rule meant to get the penalty. I'm not sure, he's talking about he was in the white. So I'm not sure if he's confused just kind of on the rule there or how that works, but got the penalty nonetheless. But overall, a pretty good win. And I'm going to run through a few of the details here. And we, coming in the first 3 weeks of the season, right, we handled business against teams we should have handled business against. And I think, coming out the Colorado game, by the way, Colorado's up on UCF by like a couple scores right now for what that's worth. But, coming out of those first 3 weeks and really, kind of not those games not really being even remotely close, Nebraska kind of putting their foot on the throat and finishing those games. And I talked about how early in this season is in Nebraska, as Nebraska learns to finish games, it needs to start even in those games, right? When we're talking about winning the fourth quarter, we're not just talking about winning the second half, winning the fourth quarter, not just necessarily talking about winning it in games that you're close in, right? You start to build those habits by building those in games that you're ahead in, right? Like, for instance, you have a crappy feeling coming out of that Colorado game, losing the second half of Colorado. There's a little bit of a mixed feeling, right? Just because of that, because you want to finish the game strong and put your foot on a team's throat. So Nebraska in the first 3 weeks, right? They finished. Okay. They finished against teams they should finish against. Come out against Colorado, play really good in the first half, right? The second half marred up with penalties. Very similar to the first half today, marred up with penalties, hard to get anything going. And so you come away from that game where we played a good first half, not a good second half. So move fast forward to, the next week, and, fast forward to Illinois, and you played a hit or miss game, but against a team with probably the most talent, the most well-coached team that you've played. But not only that, they out-executed you and out-game planned you. That's what Illinois did, honestly. They didn't out-talent us, they out-executed us and out-game planned us, and that got them the win, right? So then coming out of that, we finally have a performance where, we come out of the first half, and the first half of this game, for all intents and purposes, Nebraska had over 200 yards and to Purdue's 80-something, right? But the offensive PI, the phantom OPI, the special teams, which we'll get into special teams. Don't worry about that. I will dive into special teams. They are special, that is for sure. Those things kept points off the board, right? So you're looking at this, if Nebraska goes in with a touchdown and a couple field goals and it's 13-0 going in a half, I think we're feeling a little bit different out of this game. And I know one of the big reasons is special teams, but I feel like a lot of people are questioning the team as a whole, and just how they looked in this game, and question a lot of the offense and all this other stuff. But I don't think we would be questioning this stuff had Nebraska come out and score those 13 points in the first half, score 28 in the second, and win this game, convincingly. Another thing too that I try to kind of do, like, for instance, the Illinois loss, taking it into perspective to be able to feel, kind of see, or take the emotion out of it, right? To be able to kind of make myself take the emotion out of it. What do I try to do, right? After the Illinois loss, I tried to come out and basically just think to myself, okay, if we win this game, right? Let's say we get a penalty at the end, right? Because that was one of the big emotional swings, right? That penalty, or we should have had a penalty on the sideline there in overtime that gave us first down. Let's say Nebraska gets that penalty, right? Then they score, right? Let's say scored a touchdown, go for two, get it, or whatever. Now I understand that changes the overall feel of the game because we won a ranked team. I get that part of it. However, the execution issues still are what they were, right? And the game still remained the same. And so what did we want to see carry over to this one? Same thing. We wanted to see how Nebraska responded from that, how the execution went. And the first half execution was okay. It wasn't the best by any stretch of the imagination, but there were a lot of things that kept Nebraska from being able to really get any kind of momentum going, including some of these bad calls. Also, some of the stuff was self-inflicted. I'm not taking anything away from that. the self-inflicted stuff I will definitely get to, but I'm talking more so just about the overall feel for this game and kind of how to compartmentalize it. So let me dive into some of y'all's comments here just a little bit. I know already got that. Coach B, I agree with some of the fan base. I understand being upset, saying fire Satterfield for that game is stupid. So, and here's what I said last week. Now, last week, actually, people got on me for saying, well, okay, so a lot of people were saying, well, the play calling by Satterfield was good last week. And I don't disagree. Like I like Satterfield's play calling. I love Satterfield's play calling. I'm in agreement with you, BA. I think people last year were too quick to jump on Satterfield because he had to make do with a patchworked offense of, a bunch of injuries they went through. And he wasn't able to run his offensive system. Now we fast forward to this year, and the plays that he's calling and the offense that he's running, it's working, right? Nebraska's getting yards. It's not like this offense is not going anywhere. To me, what I think that Illinois did that Nebraska didn't last week, it was Bielema came out there. When I watched the film, I saw this a lot. What Bielema did was he came out there and he schemed up Illinois' offense perfectly and had a game plan throughout the game. And what I mean is everything in that was a setup for something later. Everything in his game plan. That's why when it's not working, he keeps going back to it, right? But he'll bring us a different wrinkle out of it. I compare it like this. It's like body blows in boxing, right? When you're fighting a guy who's, you're going 12 rounds with him, you want to start attacking the body early, right? Start getting at the gas tank, start punching him in the stomach so he can't breathe as good. It'll affect his cardio. And then later you chop that tree at the bottom and then you come over the top and you put him down. You drop his hands because he's tired getting in the body. You hit him in the head and he's tired. So he goes down. I kind of see that as what Illinois did. And to an extent, that's kind of like what running the ball is, right? Running the ball to wear the defense down. I get that part of it. But what Illinois did, it wasn't just an investment of the run game. It was the investment in the scheme where, 85, for instance, on that little touchdown play, where they snuck 85 out to the back right corner of the end zone on that little touchdown play right there. There were three actually in that drive. 3 of the 5 plays prior to that were all kind of like set up plays for that. They ran some kind of variation of 85. There was one play that was actually called back with a penalty, but they actually ran 85 out on that same route concept, right? But it was covered. A little bit later, they ran 85 out and kind of brought him across on a blocking thing, and then they move 85 over, and then again they sneak him out of the end zones. It was all set up, right? And then the stuff. What they did was they used hitches, out routes to get Nebraska's defense spread out. They wanted to run the ball to get Nebraska's backers up and dump it over the top of them. And then they also wanted to dump it over the top of them to get them on their heels so they couldn't come down and stop the run. It was a game plan thing, right? And so I don't think last week maybe Satterfield was out play called. I think he was out game plan. And this week, I think the game plan was a little bit of the same. I just think that Nebraska's offense, like right now, the identity is kind of what I'm talking about. What's our offensive identity? We don't seem to have one, in my opinion, because I don't know what type of offense we're going to run from each week coming out of the field, right? Normally you'd be able to come out there and say, so just Marcus Satterfield in general, what he likes to do is he likes to have that physical, run game, short, intermediate pass game as well to set up the deep ball, right? That's Satterfield's offense. He likes to get big, 12 personnel. He likes to huddle. He is the one person that will be huddling when everybody else in football is no longer huddling. Satterfield will be huddling. That's kind of his style. So yeah, I'm 100%. Satterfield is fine. Like I have no issues with Satterfield. I just think sometimes that we need to kind of get a better identity and game plan together. And I think that's part of this process still. We're in year 2 of Marcus Satterfield. Maybe we're still finding that identity. We have players coming through, new players stepping up. So everything is a growing process with the coaches too. Like people act like coaches don't develop just as much as players do. Well, Satterfield is in year 2 at this Nebraska team with this roster. He's going to develop as well. And I'm sorry, but this offense is not doing poor enough for us to be calling for Satterfield's head. Nebraska played a not horribly, but like for all intents and purposes, what us fans look at and was a bad performance let's say bad, and they come out of it 28 points, right? Last year, we couldn't even get 28 points. So take that for what you will. They couldn't stomach the drunk negativity, fire roll BS, bunch of babies saying that after season 4 games. Not surprised though. Not surprised at all. Agree on the officiating. Yeah, I've been a part of the coaching staff. People fired at losing. It's the championship double OT, extra sensitive to the mids. It's emotion. It's emotion. Like the thing about it is and that's why I'm not gonna go after them because they're fans, right? They have the right to feel emotion. They shouldn't go after anybody else for their opinion. But the thing about it is when when you think about it from a perspective of a coach, or when you know think about how coaches and players look at this, right? Coaches and players, they go out there and they play on Saturday. They're going to feel it, right? They're going to feel it that Saturday. They're going to feel it that Sunday. But what do they do when they come to the building Monday? They turn the page to the next opponent, right? Wash it. We're 1-0 each and every week, right? Go 1-0 each and every week. That's the recipe, right? We're looking way down the road to Ohio State. We're sitting here, we're talking about in the beginning of the season, we're going to be 7-0. What are we going to be 6-1? We need to go 1-0 every single week. That needs to be our concern. And that is the problem with the fan base right now. In my opinion, is the fan base is too worried about going 7-0, 8-0, going in Ohio State, top 10 matchup on the road. We're not worried about next week, right? Rutgers. Let's focus on that. And let's look in a vacuum of what this team is and what they have to do to get past Rutgers. And then let's get past Indiana and so on and so forth, right? It's there. The mindset of the fans is season long. The mindset of the players and coaches is like each week we reset, right? New game, new opportunity to be a new team. Each week is a new opportunity to be the team that you weren't last week, to do the things that you didn't do last week, right? But you'd rather learn in an ugly win than an ugly loss. Let's be honest. Yeah, hard to get too upset about it. I've coached many games where we get a big lead, control the ball, control the clock, and win. I don't understand the criticism of the first game. I didn't either. Again, we finished all those games. Yeah, that's if Illinois wins, will Nebraska be ranked? Colorado rolling against UCF, though, it would be 4-1 also. Potentially. I think Nebraska was I think they fell to 30. Now it's going to depend on a lot of other jostling, but you also got teams like, your Indiana, you have Rutgers, teams that they might try to pop in there as well. I don't necessarily know if Nebraska will be ranked, but I think Rutgers should be ranked. So Nebraska potentially having a ranked matchup against Rutgers, because I think Rutgers 100% should be ranked. Without a doubt, Kyle Monangai is let's be honest, Washington found out what it's like to lose a Big Ten game last night, right? That's how you lose in the Big Ten. You scratch and you claw for every single point, right? And you come up just a little bit short, right? A physical matchup, right? Rutgers just did what they do. Wasn't pretty. Ethan Kaliak-Manis, not the best quarterback in the world. Monangai is a load to bring down. He is a absolute load to bring down. He's going to be a problem. Ethan Kaliak-Manis is 2-0 versus Nebraska. Let's not forget that. 2-0. He's beat us both times he's played us. So Rutgers is a team, again, coming into the season. Or in this offseason, when I did my preseason prediction, I said Rutgers and Illinois would be our two most physical games. And I thought those would be our two biggest tests because of the, Dylan Raiola being a freshman. How was it going to be when he started taking hits? I had us winning Illinois, but losing to Rutgers. So we'll see how that turns out. But I'll dive into Rutgers here a little bit too. I think we probably need to win 2 more to be ranked. I think if Rutgers can be in the rankings and we beat Rutgers, I think we definitely are ranked potentially. But field goal kicker next year, we'll overspend on a field goal kicker, play snapper. Yeah, that's so. This is a big one. This is Ed Foley, and credit to Ed Foley. Again, it's hard to criticize these. It's hard to go on Twitter and stuff like that and talk about these things like fire Ed Foley and all this other stuff. Cause I think BA reposted it on X where, Foley's out there grinding. It's not a lack of effort, man. He was out there on the sideline working with the long snappers. And so you don't want to go after a guy personally and attack him, but Ed Foley, what he's doing with the special teams is not working, obviously. This field goal kicking debacle, we're oh, it's the hold, it's the snap, it's everything, right? It's the entirety of the system. The whole, if we're pointing at one thing being wrong on display. One thing being wrong, it's the special teams, right? That whole thing, that whole team needs to be revamped. Um, Long snapper needs to be. I don't know what needs to be done, but like this cannot happen anymore, right? Because you talk about the yards that you add to, let's say, Raiola's total for pass interference yards. Let's say, oh, he had 300 yards passing, but add another 80 for the pass interference. Well, you get out there and you have, your quarterback going 75, 80 yards every single time, and it's not enough to even get 3 points. You have to go 100. And Purdue and other teams are going to start playing Nebraska as if they're going to play them to kick a field goal, because they know they're not capable of it. Keep stuff in front of you. Don't let Nebraska beat you over the top. Are they going to play us to try to make a field goal? Are they going to try to test Nebraska to see if they can actually make a field goal? What does Nico Ottamanelli got on the sideline? At this point, because today was just it was horrible. Jacob Hull, the first, or I don't know if it was the first or second one, but that snap was dang near sideways by the time he was almost ready to kick that ball before he got lifted up a little bit. And it's horrendous all the way around. Yeah, special teams is terrible. Left tackle too. I will say on the left side of the line, I was critical because on the film last week, I watched Justin Evans and Gunnar Gatula on a few of those plays late in the game, and I spotlighted those on the film review where they kind of Gatula had a god-awful play there on the left side. Now, albeit he got thrown in there, right? And what did he do this week, man? They blocked really, really well on that left side. So credit to them. That was a huge, huge jump week over week to what that left side of that line looked like last week versus this week. So good job there on the left side of the line, just in terms of just kind of the improvement, because that was concerning to me. We'll definitely overspend on a field goal. Can you overspend on a field goal kicker at this point? Like, I will back up the Brinks truck for a kicker and a long snapper at this point. Seems like a big defense, and your criticism is valid. Many on social media is not. Yeah. Why can't we play a complete game? Because we haven't learned how to. This is the team that's still learning how to play. This is the team that's learning how to finish, right? And when your team that's learning how to finish, right, you're focused, right? You're in this mindset usually if you're going to come in there fired up, right? But then, things happen. Whatever happens for the first 3 quarters. You tighten up in that fourth quarter, right? But to kind of break those habits, it's not going to be all of a sudden we just start playing well in the fourth quarter and we're playing a complete game, right? It comes down to scheming up the entire game plan, and that starts, with execution from the jump. And what has happened in the previous weeks, the Colorado game, it wasn't just execution in the Colorado game. There was basically a referee show in the second half that also caused a lot of issues in the rhythm, but also caused a touchdown to get called back. And so there's some instances in those, realms where, for instance, like the first 3 weeks, right, we played a pretty complete game overall. We didn't really need to score in the second half. 9 to 10 running backs got a touch against UTEP. I think 11 running backs got a touch against UTEP. So they're rotating guys through. Colorado was the first, real game to be able to try to play a 4 quarters. And then I just talked about what happened there. You move over to the Illinois game. And for all intents and purposes, that game wasn't necessarily, I still think that game wasn't a complete game, of course, but it was, I think, more consistent across the board than a game we've had this season in terms of just success rate offensively. Defensively is a whole different story. But again, I don't blame that on our defensive personnel. I blame that on the execution on the offensive side of the ball. Now, the execution on the defensive side of the ball struggled a little bit, which was getting guys out of position, because a guy next to him would be out of position, and then they would have to then try to make up for the guy next to him, and that got them out of position a lot. However, it's just a team that's still learning how to finish games, and when you learn finally how to finish games, you can then start stringing complete games together. But this is just it's a process. This culture was so far gone that it wasn't going to be just about starting to win the fourth quarter and now all of a sudden we've won the game. It was going to be about revamping quarters 1 through 4 to put a complete game together, and that's what they're trying to do. So I think Purdue Purdue scoring 3, it woke them up. Yeah, I'm glad it woke them up, though. Again, in previous years, come off a heartbreaking loss, at home to a ranked team, and then you come out here and, play your tail off in the first half over 200 yards to come out 0-0, and then you're down on the scoreboard first. I'm glad it woke them up, because last year that might have knocked them out. So I'm really happy that woke them up. Still only played one half of football. Yep, we need to play 4 quarters, not 2. Yep. That though we knew we'd have such a tough schedule. And I agree with y'all. I'm not taking anything away from y'all. Like this, the 100%, this needs to be a 4-quarter football team. And they're not going to beat Rutgers playing a half of football. But I think this is stuff that I think this game right here was a little bit different, not in the sense of in terms of just, I think it was different in terms of what we finally got to see, which was a second half in a fourth quarter, where Nebraska played well. And now if they can put it together, Rutgers has to be the week. This is the week to do it, though, right? We come out of this, you get punched in the mouth by Illinois, you come out and you respond, you get out of the dirt against Purdue, you come out and you pull a win away. Now Rutgers is the game to put a complete game together, because they're going to have to. So all of this is for nothing. We are in week 6 now? Now we got to start trying to put some complete games together. Okay. Now we're getting to that part of the schedule where it's getting a little bit dicier. Indiana's all of a sudden a lot better than we thought. Rutgers is about as good as I expected them to be, and they're a very physical team. So we'd have a tough schedule. Illinois, Indiana probably ranked, Ohio State, USC. Yeah, in USC, actually, I predicted USC to lose to USC's. Oh, never mind. USC's beating them now, 38-21. I thought that said 31-28, but my dyslexia kicked in. But yeah, I predicted Michigan exact score last week against USC, 27-24, because I just didn't think LSU wasn't very good. So I'm still, the jury's not out on USC. I don't think USC is physical. Miller Moss is an excellent quarterback, don't get me wrong, but they were riding high off of a opening week win to LSU, and LSU came out and nearly lost, I believe, South Carolina. Was it? I can't remember. And then, yeah, LSU was down to UCLA, or tied at half with UCLA. So let's see. Foley shouldn't be allowed on the plane back to Nebraska. Very negative Mike. Oh yeah, I just realized very negative Mike's in here. I understand the criticism Foley right now bothers hell out of me. His personal attacks. Yeah, that's where I draw the line too. Some fans are tough to satisfy. Won the game on the road. Gart was be a tough game. Forget 6-1. Focus on 1-0. Exactly. 1-0 each and every week. I'll die on the heel. UTEP was a complete game. CU was pretty good when you realize what the staff was doing. Yeah, and I think kind of Rule kind of alluded to that. But I also, again, that CU game though, we would have had a touchdown there. There's also things there that would have made that half look better, even with that being said. But yeah, very good point. At halftime, I was thinking it would be a great opportunity to flip the script in the second half. Was I 100% confident we could? No, but hot damn, I'll take it. Yep, exactly. All right, let me go ahead and dive into just let me see if let me pull up my notes here. A couple things that I did want to touch on. So whenever Matt Rule was talking about Mazuka, I'm sure y'all have seen this by now. Mizuki says still with the team. He's going to discuss that on Monday. So we'll have more of that around the time, on Monday, whenever they give us some more news around that. And one of the things too, going into next week that I will say too, Rutgers, they're coming off of a dogfight, right? An emotional dogfight. So Rutgers is going to be a team that it could susceptibly come in and do what Nebraska did today, where they kind of start slow, right? So Nebraska needs to be able to jump on Rutgers quick next week. So Nebraska needs to execute early in the game and get ahead of Rutgers, because Rutgers is going to want to get behind Kyle Monangai. They're going to want to pound that rock, assert their physicality on you. Shiano wants to run you out Big Ten football, just like they beat Washington yesterday. And that's their approach. But again, coming off of, a tough win, coming off a tough win, a hard-fought win, they could very well, have a little bit of a lapse early on in the game. Nebraska needs to jump on them early. So I'm just going to put that out there. John Bullock. I do want to spotlight John Bullock. John Bullock has been the defensive MVP this season. In my opinion, John Bullock has looked excellent. And I am one that I will say, hand up, did not expect him to be our best defensive player by any stretch of the imagination. But looking at last week's film as well, the couple of times that John Bullock, the ball was dumped over his head for him being slightly out of position, it was because John Bullock was playing the strong side of the field and basically had the most responsibility of anybody and was also trying to cover down for somebody else in certain areas on those two plays that were out of position, right? And what does John Bullock do anytime that he is put in a good position to make a play, or even if he gets beat, right? So today he comes out, talks about the Tampa 2 call. He said they run Tampa cover 2 on that play, and the call came up. They just kept running that play against Tampa cover 2, right? Probably trying to get something to beat you over the middle or something like that. And Bullock was ready for it. And that was what was Illinois was doing against Nebraska. Whenever Nebraska would get in a cover 2 situation, whenever Illinois was running the ball and they were kind of drawing those linebackers down, well, then, they take advantage of cover 2 and they dump it over the middle because, your linebacker's not in a position to get back on that. So if you're not able to take Bullock out of the middle of the field or take Nebraska out of the middle of the field on those cover 2 looks, that's going to be the biggest thing for Rutgers. Rutgers is going to really need to put stress on Nebraska's linebacking core because that's the recipe right now. If they can run Monungai enough, Calic Manis can make throws when he needs to, right? He's averaging, I think, 8 yards per attempt, which is the most of his career. So he can make throws when he needs to. The thing about it is you want to make as much traffic in those throws as you can. He's not very good at threading the needle, but he's good at hitting open targets. He'll occasionally make a tight window throw, and he can use his legs, right? So Nebraska's linebackers need to be on. Javen Wright got out there today, which was good to see. Nebraska's linebackers need to be on in this next game. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of that. They're going to bring him down. Kyle Monungai is going to run. They're going to dump it over with Nathan Calic Manis over the middle, and then that's going to be, have the defense on the heels again. But Nebraska's going to, I think today is a good week to build from, just in terms of how the linebackers looked across the board, to be able to kind of go into that game. The biggest thing this coming week is going to be the injury status of the cornerback room, the defensive back room. I'm curious to see what's going on with Sierre. Curious to see what's going on with Tommy Hill. That plantar fasciitis is very finicky, man. I had it when I played soccer growing up. I had plantar fasciitis, and it was just very hit or miss, right? Like it would be hurting sometimes, and then other times, like it would just go away, right? So hopefully it's something that'll resolve quickly. But you can see Sierra out there deserves a lot of credit. Sierra Wright played an excellent game. His ball skills are tremendous. His explosions have been great. The one thing that we do miss with, when we want Bly Hill back out there is just that length, man. We need that 6'3" kind of long rangy type of cornerback like a Bly Hill is. That's why the pairing of Tommy Hill opposite of Bly Hill was a perfect situation and scenario because, at the same time you got a Tommy Hill who's got incredible ball skills because he played wide receiver and cornerback, but also is tremendous just as a coverage cornerback, put on 20 pounds, so he's better in run stop. And then you had Bly Hill opposite him, who's 6'3", 6'4", long rangy arms, incredible ball skills, and is able to go up in high point balls or be able to get his hands on balls that these other guys aren't. This defensive back room, if it gets healthy, I think that's a lot of things that people aren't taking into account too. Like we saw Jeremiah Charles got in there today. Luckily, Jeremiah Charles didn't get picked on. They didn't start targeting his side a ton, which is what typically happens when you have a guy like him come in. So that's good to see. So I do want to give credit to John Butler, defensive backs coach, for what he's been able to do still with this DB room with all these injuries as well. So let's see. Justin DM me tonight. I'll tell you what I heard this week about Mazuka. All right, cool. It's first week, like I knew, so I'll cover 2 Tampa 2 until today. I was loving the change, but I liked it today. It's for me, like coverage Tampa 2 for me is that, yeah, it's very easy to beat. I've always been a fan of just kind of Well, I'm a man coverage. You put me in cover one man coverage, and I'm happy. But I'm naturally teams are going to throw Nebraska out of man coverage. They try to stay in that. But like I think this and the 3-3-5, the way the 3-3-5 works. But I think just the way that this team, like you said, looked today, and I think there were hints of it in previous weeks. Um, where I don't mind it. I don't mind it either. I think they're getting enough looks out of it. I think the defense is playing at such a high level. Last week is an outlier. I will consider that an outlier again. Game plan. Um, Illinois just executed well, but Nebraska, unless a team comes in and schemes up and out executes Nebraska, we've seen what this defense is capable of. So yeah, I have no problem with it. I didn't love the change either, but yeah, I like the way it's going so far. By nature, I'm a cover 3, cover 1 guy, especially out of 3-3-5 and 4-2 looks and ran it well last year. I'm a big cover 1 guy. Give me cover 1 all day. Not all day. You run against some of these teams, and you'll get ran out of cover 1 real quick. But yeah, I'm typically cover 3, cover 1 guy as well. So, all right, let's go ahead and dive into some of the stats here, and let me just go ahead and first get into Dylan Raiola's day. So Raiola came out here, and overall, just did what he normally does, right? It's hard to criticize that anything that Raiola is doing right now. If he misses a throw, it's typically not put in harm's way, right? He had a couple underthrows or an underthrow today, which led to a PI, but he's really good at, like, I called this out 2 weeks ago, but he's really good at identifying that outside man coverage and being able to just kind of throw the ball up to where only his guy can get it, and or he's going to have to try to come back to the ball, draw a PI, because the DB is not going to get his head around. So he does a good job of doing that. 16 for 26, 244 yards and a touchdown. Ja'Cory Barney came out, 4 carries, 66 yards and a touchdown with that 31-yard long. And my man Emmett Johnson, 8 carries for 50 yards. So listen, I'm going to just show you right now. I was the key cog in the free Emmett train here. Let me see if I can pull this up for y'all. Key cog in the free Emmett train, right? I said, y'all got to let my man Emmett Johnson eat. Free EJ. And they let him eat. And every time that he's had an opportunity to get in there and produce, he's produced. He's had the most explosive runs this season. And one of the things that I just think he's the best fit to run behind this line today, because the run blocking wasn't the best by the line. Pass protection was good. Run blocking wasn't the best. But Emmett Johnson's a guy who can run through you. He's 5'11", over 200 pounds. So he can run through you, but he can also make you miss in a phone booth. He has such quick change of direction, such choppy feet, right? We've seen it and I saw it so many times last year where he'll get a step into the second level, a half step into the second level, stop, make the second level guy miss, and he's already in the third level and shooting to the outside, right? He is such a hard player to bring down. Dowdle loves contact. Dowdle refuses to run around people. He just wants to go right through you, which is where Emmett comes in. And Dowdle, I take nothing away from Dowdle. Dowdle's a really, really good running back, excellent running back. However, there was no way, in my opinion, that anybody but Emmett Johnson should have been the number 1 running back coming to the season. I said it all off season. Last season, I was probably the only person that talked about him out of fall camp, because he was getting he was splitting reps 50-50 with the first team last fall camp. Not this one, last fall camp. So when he came in, I was not surprised at what he did. He's an excellent runner of the football. He's very cerebral. He's got a high football IQ. He is patient. You saw him get behind his blockers today. Emmett Johnson will be running by himself for a 40-yard touchdown. He's got 2 hands on the ball when he goes in the end zone, right? I don't understand what it is that he wasn't doing, but he should be the feature back on this team, in my opinion. And I'm here for it. So hashtag free EJ. Dylan Raiola's better than Avery Johnson. Yeah, Raiola hands the ball off good. Some QBs seem to telegraph they're going to hand off. It's just understanding of the quarterback position, and it's little things like that, right? Like the nuances of the position. It's selling those little play action fakes that people don't see, or it's selling the little fake bootleg action off of the play action, right? Those little details, because that's what the defense is looking at, right? You're hiding the ball, or when you're handing it off, you're trying to pretend like you still have it. Those little things matter. big time, because that's what's going to defend. That's what you're trying to, in a lot of instances, because defensive players and defenses are so athletic now. It's a constant battle to confuse the eyes, right? You're just trying to get their eyes somewhere else away from the ball so you can get them out of position. So that way they are so far away from the play or have made a step away from the play so you can get out there and do it. And these defenses are getting faster. The 3-3-5 is one of those. 4-2-5 is another one of those that he mentioned earlier. Those defenses have 5 defensive backs. They help you stay a little bit faster and keep up with these spread offenses of modern college football. So, but yeah, let me dive back into a few of the numbers here. Let's see. So Dowdle, 9 carries, 21 yards. We have Jamal Banks, 5 receptions for 82 yards. Jamal Banks, just an absolute, like, Jamal Banks is going to be that receiver that you go to in these games, right? To me, I still hold firm that Jamal Banks is the best receiver on this team in terms of just pure X talent receiver, NFL receiver, Jamal Banks, right? Nair gets a ton of the targets and the numbers and all that, but I'm just talking about, like, when I watch the film, when I see him as a player, Jamal Banks is top 15 wide receiver material in college football. And these are the games where it shows, right? The real grind them out type of games. 5 receptions for 82 yards and a touchdown. That one play in the end zone. Very interesting concept they ran there. They had the 3 receivers in close to the line on the strong side. And then they had Isaiah Nair. I think it was a strong side. I can't remember where they were lined up exactly. But they had Isaiah Nair just lined up, to the left side solo, as if maybe they were going to throw a back corner fade or something like that. Then they have the 3 guys up top, quick motion out or quick motion in. And then you have it was Fedoni and somebody else. I'm drawing a blank. They ran hitches, right? So they went right into the end zone, ran a couple of hitches. Well, there was 4 defensive backs right there on that side of the field that had to make a decision, right? So you have 2 in man coverage that are right there with them. And there was another one that stayed down, and then Banks blew past them to the back of the end zone. And the one guy that was trying to hurry up and make a decision, their eyes are everywhere. By the time he recognizes that Banks is gone and he has no help over the top, Banks was already past him, right? So interesting play design there. I like that. I also liked the play call that they had against Illinois, where they almost had somewhat of a levels concept, where they had, they had a flat route coming across, they had a drag route coming across, and they had just kind of a deep in route coming across. And then they brought basically Isaiah Nair back the other direction to the back of the end zone and found that little window, timed that little window in there. So I do like a lot of the play calling in terms of the pass concepts on the goal line. Is just overall just kind of what we do when we get on the goal line. That is my question. You have Emmett running the ball so well, and then you get down on the goal line, you bring in, Dowdle, Gabe Ervin, and you ran Carter Nelson. I see people talking about, like, oh, why'd they put Carter Nelson in the backfield? I don't know why you're surprised. Whenever Carter Nelson committed, Matt Rule tweeted a picture of Walter Payton jumping over the line for a touchdown and said that Carter Nelson is going to be mixed in to the back. He was tweeting that because he's like, this is positionless. Like, Carter Nelson can play anywhere. We line him in the backfield. That's exactly what they tried. They tried to line him up in the backfield to get him to jump over. I think that was that Walter Payton moment. Am I the only one that remembers that tweet? But I don't agree with it. But however, I just think Emmett Johnson should have definitely been able to come in and get those carries there on the goal line. I don't understand the change. Again, that's just ride the hot hand. I don't understand rotating for the sake of rotating. So going through the defensive stats here, Sierra Wright, 5 total tackles, 5 solos. Hartzog, 4 tackles. John Bullock with 3, but had that big, he had a TFL and that big pick 6. Sean Tingleton out there. MJ Sherman came in with 1.5 sacks. So good day by him. You look at James Williams. James Williams looks incredible. Pass rusher out there, 2 sacks for James Williams. So, and we listened to him talk earlier this offseason, and he was talking about just how him being a smaller defensive end, he's really got to go 110% on every single play. And not only that, his body gets beat up a lot more. So, like, credit to James Williams for what he's done in terms of taking care of his body to withstand it because it's almost like he's gotten better as the season has gone along. Now he's just when it comes to smaller body, he's 6'6", 250, but he's just a little bit leaner in comparison to the other some of the other edge rushers and pass rushers we got on this team. Ty Robinson had a big sack in there. Keona Davis get in there with a TFL. And then, like I said, we got to see a few snaps in there from Javen Wright. So Buda Wright, hopefully, will be back on the field next week. It would be huge to have Javen Wright back for Rutgers. And then you have, of course, Vincent Shavers, Willis McGahee, fourth, getting action in there. You come around and we had Brian Buschini with 3 punts for 103 yards, 1 touchback, 1 inside the 20. But Buschini's been having a really good year up until this point so far. Running through the team stats here, let me go through third down conversion, third down efficiency. 1 for 8 for Nebraska. 1 for 8 third down efficiency, right? So 25 first downs, 1 for 8 on third down, Purdue 7 for 15. Total yards, 405 total yards for Nebraska, 224 for Purdue. Again, that was similar to the first half. I think Purdue had under 100. I think they had 80 some odd yards in the first half. Nebraska had over 200. 9.4 yards per pass for Nebraska, which is a really good number. 7 for Purdue, which is above their average. I mentioned that coming in. Rushing yards, 161 on 32 attempts. And then Purdue 50 rushing yards on 31 attempts, 1.6 per carry. So the run defense, again, got it done. They got it done last week. They got it done this week. They're going to need to get it done next week. Penalties across, man. 11 for 94 for Nebraska, 13 for 165 yards on Purdue. Time of possession, 30 minutes Nebraska, 29 minutes Purdue. So, again, Nebraska's not really killing it in terms of time possession, but this game was a little bit funky as it was anyways. So the biggest thing is no turnovers. Won the turnover margin again. So if you win the turnover margin, then that's what we ask of this team. Win the turnover margin. Georgia, Bama, and 15. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm going to hop off here. What Georgia, Bama predictions? Let me get them. So how do we make more changes in special teams? Foley needs help. The biggest way to make a change in special teams is to get you a new coach, right? I mean, they're trying. I think somebody with some experience in special teams, Matt Rule has to have somebody in there who has more special teams experience and can kind of give, it's similar to what Nebraska, look at Matt Rule last year when he said Ron Brown was the one that told him he wasn't coaching fumbles and ball security hard enough. And he was right. And so what did he do? He started coaching ball security more so as the season went along, started coaching it harder, and he said it got better as the season went along. Somebody needs to do that with Ed Foley. If Ed Foley's going to be here another week, somebody needs to go teach him or help him. Like, hey, we need to coach this. We need to coach this because there's a lot of experience on this staff. Somebody's got to do it. I flip-flop between Emmett and Dante depending on the kind of gains they're getting that day, and that's fine. I'm perfectly cool with flip-flopping between the two, but I just think they both need to be getting the majority of the touches, and each one brings you something a little different. Dante's going to give you a lot of power between the tackles. Emmett's going to get you a lot of change of direction. He's going to get you a little bit more versatility and catch out of the backfield. So I think just having those as a thunder and lightning combination is a really good thing. And then, of course, you have Ramir as well. Mix him in there, run him out of the slot. But I just don't think it needs to be as heavy of a dose of them. People are going to criticize any singular thing that doesn't work 1,000% to perfection. Yeah. I just want them to pass the tight ends running north-south. They get a lot of yards after context and move in the right direction. And the more that – and Satterfield loves to use his tight ends. So the more that Nebraska uses their tight ends, the more that this offense will go. And I think it's what we've seen, right? The more they've utilized tight ends, the more – and Fedoni has been excellent with his hands. Fedoni's been really good. That OPI today, he ran that play perfectly. Fedoni's been really good this year. So hopefully they can continue, to really get him the ball and just overall, just kind of, as Carter Nelson gets more involved too, I think we'll be able to maybe even rotate. I don't know if they want to rotate him at the tight end position occasionally, but because they want to keep him a receiver, of course, because he's not as developed as a tight end. As a true freshman, it's really hard to come play, as Matt Rule said, as a tight end. But overall, I mean, we got a solid tight end room. Your Borkacher, you have Fedoni. We have plays to these guys. We saw one against Illinois that came open. It's just a matter of just getting them involved more. And it seems like they want to, but then sometimes they back away from that. So, and I think that's a little bit more part of the identity that I'm talking about with this offense and trying to figure out what actually their offensive identity is. Going into that. So let me I'll dive into a few more of the numbers here so I can get you out of here for the USC game if you're going to be popping on that. So let's see, going through the pass catchers again. Yeah, Fedoni 3 receptions for 39 yards. Emmett two receptions for 35 yards. Corey Barney 2 for 28. Isaiah Nair 1 for 14. So overall, 16 receptions, 244 yards, long of 27, a rushing long of 31. Looking forward over to Rutgers. All right, let me go ahead and turn the page over to Rutgers real quick. And I want to pull this up too. I have a power rankings here that I made for my Big Ten show. If y'all are interested, I have a Big Ten show as well. It's at Big Ten Show on YouTube. I can go ahead and drop the link for you right here. But I'm gonna run through my power rankings real quick and just see how they sorry, let me just drop this in for anybody who wants to subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe here. Whoops, sorry. Drop that in there for y'all. That's my Big Ten show. I'll have some we'll have some videos coming this week, some live streams coming this week. But here is my power rankings that I had on this. Y'all can tell me where you agree, disagree, or not. And I just want to stack them up to see how things went this week. If I can find them in my screen share here, that'd be fantastic. Sorry, one second. Window. There we go. All right. Here we go. All right. So 1 Ohio State, 2 Penn State, 3 Oregon. I had Illinois 4, Rutgers 5, Michigan 6, Indiana 7, USC 8. So USC struggled with Wisconsin. Michigan struggled with Minnesota. Put Illinois up here. They had a ranked road win, of course, and they were undefeated. Rutgers up here, they were undefeated. And now they have another conference win. So USC, Nebraska, Iowa, Washington, Michigan State. Washington, of course, losing that close one to Rutgers. Maryland, Wisconsin. Wisconsin battled hard today, but they are what they are. Minnesota, that's supposed to be 15. Northwestern at 16, Purdue at 17, UCLA at 18. So we didn't lose, or we didn't beat the last place team in my power rankings, second to last only. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on those as well. But yeah, like I said, I just want to stop on here and hang out with y'all before this game starts. But I know a lot of y'all want to watch this USC Georgia Bama game too. So I'll take a few more of y'all's comments if y'all want to stop by in here. I'll get to my couple of my notes just to make sure I got everything that I wanted to talk about handled. Let's go ahead and talk about Rutgers while I wait for a couple more of these comments to drop in here if y'all want. Like I said, if you're late hopping in here for Rutgers, what the recipe is going to be Nebraska get out to an early lead. Nebraska cannot do what they did today and beat Rutgers. Nebraska's going to have to come out. They're going to have to try to control the clock as much as possible. What Illinois did to Nebraska, if Rutgers does that to Nebraska, Nebraska's going to lose this game. Nebraska needs to get out early. They need to find an identity offensively, and they need to stick with it. They need to control the time possession, limit the amount of possessions, because Rutgers is not going to score on a lot of possessions. They're just going to want to kill you with clock. There was one drive yesterday where I think they took 7 minutes of clock to go 40-something yards and scored on a touchdown on like third down, right? That's a Rutgers drive. That's a very Rutgers drive. So Nebraska's going to have to deal with that and be able to just have to come in. And this is where we're going to see if Nebraska took the step from Illinois or not. That physicality step, right? Illinois came in and physicaled Nebraska up, right? Rutgers wants to come in and do the same thing. If we want to talk about the growth of this team, the Illinois to Rutgers game is going to be a good test of that, right? I know we were going to take away what we could from this Purdue game, but again, styles make fights, right? Purdue, not a very good team. I don't think a lot of us were going to come away from this feeling like, okay, well, now I feel like we correct a lot from the Illinois game. I think the Rutgers game is the perfect test of that. So, Rutgers also in a situation, like I said, where they come off a hard-fought emotional win in the Big Ten. And do they come out and lull like Nebraska did coming off of last week? Nebraska comes out here, gets a pretty, decent size victory and is able to kind of get some guys, rotated through. Javen Wright gets back out there. Is this going to be a recipe for Nebraska to come out and start strong next week? I think there's a potential that is the case, but of course, everything starts with this team and how they get up to practice. And again, this staff, this team, we are sitting here at 4-1. Last year, this team would have lost. This team would have lost off that Illinois game. They would have come out here. They would have got punched in the mouth by Purdue like they did today, or at least not been able to punch Purdue in the mouth. And they would have just one thing would have led to another. They were able to bring themselves out of that, climb out of that hole. This is the resilience we need to see, right? Nebraska got their loss out of the way early, come out, battled some resilience in this game, in this first half, got it together in the second half. Now let's see if they can keep it going. We look at last year's season. Started good, ended the season bad. Well, we got an opportunity to change that. Again, each week, 1-0. That's all we got to do. We got to go 1-0 each and every single week, and everything that this team needs is still right in front of them, okay? Not Husker related, but you watch out if KC draws Houston in the playoffs. I am not worried. Houston's going to beat the Chiefs. Breaks off. Thanks for the videos representing Nebraska well. Mark Rogers Show. I appreciate it. Georgia winning by 3. I also got Georgia winning. So Bama by 6. I'm not surprised. I just, for some reason, I feel like Georgia got their scare a week early, and I think they're going to be fired up to play Bama because of that. Was it Kentucky? Was that Kentucky they played close? Can't remember who played them close the week prior. But yeah, I think that, I think Georgia's a team that's going to respond after a game like that, but we'll see, because Milrow's tough. But Georgia's defense is tough, man. It's going to be a good game for sure. So, yeah, but that being said, man, I appreciate everybody stopping in and tuning in to listen to me talk about the game. I appreciate y'all dropping your thoughts in here as well. As always, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central, I will have my live stream going. I will have watched the Purdue Nebraska film by then. I'll have some takes for y'all this week on what I saw from the film, what I saw week over week from the Illinois film to the Purdue film, that we can take with us into the Rutgers game and see how much of that holds true. So again, I appreciate everybody who stopped in here. If you don't mind dropping a like before we head out. And yeah, with that being said, I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.